Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speaks a lot about going after corruption and dissolving a lot of these corrupt agencies as well. So he can be attractive to both. And one of the big sticking points that you did mention at the beginning of this interview is this jab. Has Trump done enough to draw attention to, he continues to say he's proud of it, but has not really acknowledged the side effects that people are now dealing with. And that's something that RFK Jr. really does speak and is passionate about. So
Right.
how do you see that playing out?
Well, I would love to see RFK Jr. run as an independent. I don't think he would hurt Donald Trump at all. I think he would be much more detrimental to the left than he would be to Donald Trump. And it's really kind of sad that a Kennedy would have to run as an independent because his own party has gotten so corrupt that it's rigged against him. I mean, he should be the nominee, the Democrat nominee. I mean, I think he's probably got more support than Joe Biden at this point, but they're working really, really hard to push him out. So it's disappointing that that's where it's at. But I think it's great. I think he should go for it, and he'll have his followers. But I don't think at all would he take voters from Donald Trump.
It's like they always talk about a MAGA cult, but you have to be basically part of a cult to continue to support these policies and have them hurt you and still have allegiance to them. It's so hard to understand. But, Trump called that this would happen, and they continue to rail against him. It's so hard to keep up with all of the legal actions that are Trump is facing, but hopefully you can give us some updates. First off, the lawfare, of course, is relentless, but so thin. California Dems, they've had to also look at other ways to strip him from the ballots before he's even faced any convictions. So what are the latest efforts or how is that going for them, their latest efforts to try and just keep him off the ballot?
Yeah, it's not going to work. I mean, it's not even in the realm of possibility. And I believe that the Supreme Court rejected review of that. So they don't have the ability to do that. And one of the ways that they're trying to do it is they're trying to claim the 14th Amendment and say anyone guilty of insurrection is not authorized to hold federal office, and therefore Donald Trump should not be eligible to be on the ballot. The problem is he's not even charged with insurrection. So forget about being found guilty, forgetting about him actually being an insurrectionist. They haven't even charged it because they know they can't prove it. So it really pales in comparison to what is needed from a legal standard. And I do not see this taking place in any state.
Having to see people's opinions and everything on social media is difficult for me, not even being a legal expert. But what is it like for you when you see people like the Krappensteins, like posting things like, oh, well, if he fraudulently valued his properties, things like that. I mean, as if it's normal for a judge to make assessments. I mean,
right. Well, the Trump organization relied on the valuation of their accountants. They hired a firm to value the properties. And one of the things that I think that's interesting about this case is the banks. So the Trump organization turns in their documents saying, this is what we believe our properties are valued at. And based on this valuation, this is how much money we believe that we should qualify for the loan. Well, the banks did their own evaluation. When you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, the banks aren't just going to take your word for it. They're going to do their own analysis and their own investigation. And they did. And the banks actually valued the properties higher than the Trump organization did. So I don't know how they can claim, and the banks aren't even claiming that they were defrauded. The banks say, hey, it was a good loan. We made good money. The loan has all been repaid. So this is not an issue where they defaulted on the loan and can't pay it back, which is typically why you would want to bring a charge like this or bring a claim like this, is that someone defrauded the bank and took a bunch of money from the bank. But that didn't happen here. All of the money was paid back with the appropriate amount of interest. So it really is a head scratcher as to why this case is allowed to go forward at all anyway, because there's no victim, which is the point that Chris Kise was making yesterday, President Trump's attorney, his trial counsel. So I don't know. It's a bit of a head scratcher because the loans have already been paid off. There were no damages and nobody was hurt. This is just a rogue attorney general who now wants to dig through and say, but hey, you valued your property too high And if you had defaulted, which he didn't, if you had defaulted, you could have taken money from the bank or something. It's a very weird case.
What's interesting is the amount of people that, even those that don't like Trump or are not necessarily supporting him for president, it's just so blatant. We can all see it.
Mm-hmm.
Most people can see, like, this is ridiculous at this point. It's relentless, and it's such, there's so much inequity in it. We have to see this over and over again, that he's treated one way that would never ever fly, both in public perception by the media or elsewhere, if the tables were turned. And the most recent example is Rep Bowman. Still no charges for him pulling the fire alarm. I mean, this is what they went into hysteria over, is the disruption of an official proceeding.
Yeah.
What can we expect to see there? Is he just going to get away with it? Well, it would not be the case if it were the other way around.
Well, I think he'll get away with it as long as Joe Biden's in office and as long as it's the Biden administration running the Department of Justice. Yes, I don't think they intend to prosecute any liberal. And the reality is, he got what he wanted. He wanted to delay the vote on the continuing resolution because they were working out side deals, and they only had 15 minutes per vote. And so he pulled the alarm to delay it, which ultimately gave them an hour to continue their negotiations. And ultimately, the CR passed. So they're not going to punish him. He got them to where they wanted to be. So he got what he wanted by pulling the fire alarm. So I would be nervous if I were him about Donald Trump getting back in office, because I wouldn't be surprised if he was prosecuted.
And then, I mean, the argument on their side is like, oh, this is hypocrisy. What about George Santos? You didn't care. Which, first of all, I don't remember any Republican being like, oh, I defend George Santos.
Yeah, who's defending George Santos?
What? And I mean, it's like, how can it, like, someone like AOC say that with a straight face while not recognizing the hypocrisy of demanding harsh penalties for January 6ers, some who literally were just walking around and got charged with, like, disruption.
Yeah, they weren't even in the Capitol. Some of them never even went inside, and they're looking at 20 years. I mean, it's hypocrisy, I feel like, is not even a fair term. It doesn't do justice to the injustice that's happening to these January 6ers, many of whom didn't even go inside. And yet you have a member of Congress pull a fire alarm for the purpose of obstructing an official proceeding, and everybody looks the other way. I mean, if people are wondering whether we have a two-tiered justice system, we do.
Yeah, this is a clear example.